held their highest level talks in years. Negotiators meet in Oman to discuss Iran's nuclear program. Both countries agree to hold second round of talks next week. US Special Envoy to West Asia Steve Witkoff briefly meets with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi after the first round of discussions on a nuclear deal in Oman. Families of Hamas held captives and their supporters hold a public Passover in Tel Aviv, demanding immediate release of hostages. BSF deploys 5 companies to support state police operations in West Bengal's Murshidabad district after violent clashes during protests against changes in the Waqf Act. US President Trump grants key tariff exemptions on electronics, giving tech giants like Apple and Nvidia a temporary reprieve. The move, backdated to April 5th, aims to ease pressure on US consumers. Ukraine has said that a Russian missile struck the warehouse of an Indian pharmaceutical company in Kyiv amidst the ongoing conflict. Now, the Ukrainian embassy in India alleged that Russia deliberately targeted the Indian firm. The Indian pharmaceutical company, which goes by the name Kusum, is one of the largest pharma firms in Ukraine. As per the reports, company claimed that its warehouse was destroyed in a Russian drone strike and not a missile attack, as is being claimed by Kyiv. The firm is owned by Indian businessman Rajiv Gupta and is responsible for the supply of basic medicines in Ukraine. In a post on social media, the Ukrainian embassy in New Delhi alleged that a Russian missile targeted the warehouse of the Indian pharmaceutical company, despite the claims of having a special friendship with India. It further read that missiles destroyed the medicines that were meant for children and elderly. The development comes just a day after Russia launched a barrage of kamikaze drones against Ukraine that led to 3 injuries. The Kyiv city military administration had said that the attack set 3 warehouses on fire. Tracers from air defenses were seen shooting into the sky while smoke drifted over Kyiv during the attack. Ukraine's Air Force said that Ukraine's air defenses shot down 56 out of the 88 drones launched by Russia in an overnight attack across the country. Meanwhile, the US is now seeking control of a Ukrainian gas pipeline that carries Russian gas into Europe. According to reports, the request was made during the tense negotiations between US and Ukrainian officials. The US-Ukraine negotiations were primarily focused on the previously failed minerals deal between the two countries, where President Trump had demanded a minerals for weapons deal. The fresh demand by the US administration comes on the back of the meeting between US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Russian President Putin. After that meeting, Steve Witkoff had reportedly conveyed to the US President. He had conveyed a proposal to give Russia ownership of 4 occupied Ukrainian regions to achieve a ceasefire. Now, on the other hand, Ukraine's ecology minister has said that the confinement over Chernobyl's fourth nuclear reactor has partially lost functionality and needs to be restored. A Russian drone had reportedly struck the shelter of the destroyed nuclear unit at the plant on the 14th of Feb, causing a fire and leaving a hole in the new safe confinement.
Unfortunately, after the attack, the arch confinement partially lost its functionality. And now, I think already in May, we will have the results of the analysis that we are currently conducting, together with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, together with involving all scientific institutions that are relevant to this direction, involving companies that were involved in the design of the arch itself and the installation of the arch, which see and understand the technology well. And in a few weeks, we will have the first results of this analysis.
A Ukrainian F-16 fighter jet pilot has been killed during a combat mission against Russian forces. This marks the second such incident since Kyiv received the first deliveries of F-16s in summer last year. 26-year-old F-16 pilot Pavlo Ivanov was killed in action under circumstances that still remain unknown. The Ukrainian president expressed his condolences on social media, saying Ukraine's Air Force continues to play a vital role in defending the country. However, the incident has raised concerns about the challenges that Ukraine faces in adapting to advanced Western military equipment in the middle of a war. In August, F-16 pilot Alexei was killed while repelling a large-scale Russian combined missile and airstrike, details of which have still not been revealed. Additional F-16 jets were delivered last month, with Zelensky confirming the delivery without specifying the number or their origin. According to reports, nations like the Netherlands, Norway and Belgium have contributed to the supply of these jets. Although questions remain over how effectively Ukraine can deploy these aircraft in a high-threat environment. Previously, Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Ignat candidly acknowledged that these jets lack the technology to engage with Russian aircraft in direct combat. However, reports indicate that the F-16s supplied to Ukraine are older models, often built in the 1980s or even early 1990s. While some have received upgrades, they still lack the advanced avionics and weapons systems found in modern fighter jets like the Su-35. The US and Iran have agreed to reconvene for further discussions next week after productive talks in Oman on Saturday. Oman's foreign minister acted as an intermediary in the talks in Muscat, but US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff also had a one-on-one conversation with Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi for a few minutes. It was a brief conversation. Araghchi, however, played down the brief meeting.
I believe it was nothing special. As we were leaving, two delegations happened to encounter each other, and we spoke for a few minutes. It is an accepted matter. In our interactions with American diplomats, we have always observed diplomatic courtesy. This time, too, it was to the same extent, just a small conversation, an exchange of greetings, so to speak, and then we left the venue. It wasn't anything extraordinary.
Araghchi said the talks took place in a productive, calm and positive atmosphere. He also said that Tehran and Washington are very close to agreement on the content of future negotiations. Araghchi also added here that the United States wants a nuclear agreement as soon as possible, but it will not be easy and will require a willingness on both sides. The White House described these discussions as positive and constructive. The statement said that Witkoff's direct communication today was a step forward in achieving a mutually beneficial outcome. Saturday's exchanges were indirect and mediated by Oman, as Iran had wanted rather than face-to-face as Trump had demanded. Each delegation had its separate room and exchanged messages via Oman's foreign minister.
I think shuttled between the Iranian and US delegations about 4 times, and the views of both sides were conveyed to each other. It lasted about 2.5 hours, and in my opinion, as a first meeting, it was a productive one. It took place in a calm and positive atmosphere. No inappropriate language was used.
آرام و بسیار محترمانه انجام شد.
Oman's top diplomat Badr al-Busaidi, who mediated the talks, said they were held in a friendly atmosphere and launched a quest for a fair and binding agreement. This is the first meeting between Iran and a Trump administration, including Trump's first term. Trump has repeatedly threatened to unleash airstrikes targeting Iran's nuclear program if a deal is not reached. Iran says its nuclear facilities are for research purposes only, but recently it has said that if the West continues to pressure Iran, then it will have no option but to resort to nuclear weapons. Under the 2015 nuclear deal, Iran could only maintain a small stockpile of uranium enriched to 3.67%. As per reports, the Iran stockpile today could allow it to build multiple nuclear weapons if it so chooses. And it has some material enriched even up to 60%, which is a short step away from weapons grade levels. While a deal with the US can offer sanctions relief for Iran's beleaguered economy, it remains unclear just how much will Iran be willing to concede.
The Iranians want those crushing economic sanctions lifted. The Americans want to see restrictions on Iran's nuclear program, and tensions in the wider Middle East that have been inflamed by the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip tamped down. So it's likely we're going to see more negotiations, but what's going to happen next is going to depend on the diplomats at the table.
India's border security force has deployed 5 companies in the state of West Bengal after 3 people lost their lives in violent clashes in the Murshidabad district. These clashes are allegedly linked to ongoing protests against the Waqf Amendment Bill. Now, the BSF deployment came after a Calcutta High Court ordered on Saturday to deploy central forces in the violence-hit areas. IG South Bengal Frontier Karni Singh Shekhawat said that the BSF will act in coordination with the police. Earlier, a division bench led by Justice Suman Sen said the court cannot keep its eyes closed when such situations come up. It also asked central and state authorities to submit separate reports following the unrest that erupted on Friday. Police arrested 110 individuals in connection with the violence. Authorities also imposed prohibitory orders and suspended internet services to prevent further escalation. On the social media platform X, Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee appealed to people of all religions to maintain peace and harmony in the region. She also added that her party doesn't support the law and it will not be implemented in the state. Strong winds have caused widespread disruption in Beijing and parts of northern China, leading to hundreds of flight cancellations, tourist sites closures and rail line suspensions as well. Now, according to the China Meteorological Administration, the powerful winds are expected to reach speeds of up to 150 kilometers per hour and last through the weekend. According to reports, at least 413 flights at Beijing's Capital International Airport have been cancelled, with train services including the airport's express subway line and high-speed rail lines also being suspended. Popular tourist attractions like the Summer Palace, Temple of Heaven, Beijing Zoo and Universal Studios theme park have been temporarily closed. Almost 300 trees had toppled and 19 vehicles were damaged in Beijing, although no injuries have been reported. Now, China's Inner Mongolia region deployed emergency responders. Footage aired by CCTV showed the city is impacted by strong snowstorms with visibility less than 300 meters on roads in some areas. Strict traffic controls were in place on provincial and national highways, with police officers on hand to shovel stuck cars out of snow. Authorities warned residents to avoid outdoor activities, with some state media outlets claiming that people weighing less than 50 kilograms might be easily blown away. Residents have been advised to stay indoors for the first time in a decade. Beijing has issued an orange alert for gales, the second highest in a 4-tier weather warning system. Now, President Trump's administration has exempted smartphones, laptops and other electronic devices from the reciprocal tariffs. And that gives global technology manufacturers such as Apple and Nvidia a temporary reprieve, with these exemptions backdated to the 5th of April. Now, just last week on Friday, the US administration announced a set of exceptions that would limit the tariffs to certain nations and items. These exclusions apply to Trump's 125% tariff on China and his basic 10% global duty on almost every other country. Consumer electronic devices such as smartphones, laptops, hard drives and memory chips have been excluded from tariffs. The exemptions will come as a welcome relief to US consumers. Additionally, this is a huge victory for Trump's large tech backers who have promised him enormous sums of money to spend in the United States in the past few months. A fast escalating trade war between the US and China was set in motion when Trump imposed tariffs, which caused a sell-off in equities and disrupted global markets. In Trump's ongoing spat with China, this is the first major easing of any kind. Daniel Ives, securities analyst at Wedbush, said that the US tech industry has a loud voice, and despite initial strong pushback against exemptions within the White House, the reality of the situation was finally recognized in the Beltway. There is still clear uncertainty and volatility ahead of these China negotiations. Well, the moon may be seeming to look a little smaller this weekend, and that is because it's a micro moon, which happens when the full moon is at its furthest point from Earth, called apogee. And this means the moon looks about 10% smaller and dimmer than usual. Astrophysicists say that this is the opposite of a supermoon that looks bigger and brighter when the moon is at its closest distance to Earth. Micromoons and supermoons occur a few times every year, and this one lights up the nights on Saturday.
When the moon then continues its orbit around Earth, it reaches a point called apogee where it is the farthest away from Earth. So consequently, in the night sky, as a full moon, the moon would be smaller in size.
And yes, another micromoon is coming up in May, followed by 3 supermoons in October, November and December. This full moon also carries religious significance across faiths. For Hindus, it marks Hanuman Jayanti, celebrating the birth of Sri Hanuman. For Buddhists, it's called Bakpoya, commemorating Buddha's peace mission to Sri Lanka. In Christianity, this is the Paschal moon used to calculate the date of Easter. And in Punjab and northern India, especially in these states, it's a time for harvest and new beginnings. Baisakhi, celebrated on the 13th or 14th of April, marks the Sikh New Year and the birth of the Khalsa in 1699. So whether you're looking up for the moon or considering faith and festivity, this weekend promises a spectacle in the sky and in spirit. Now, let's take a look at what's happening in sports. Some of the prominent English Premier League matches are scheduled for today. Liverpool could move within just 8 points of officially being crowned champions if they beat West Ham at Anfield. The Reds were narrowly beaten 3-2 at Craven Cottage, suffering only their second league defeat of the season. However, Sunday's clash presents the perfect opportunity for Arne Slot's side to edge closer to their 20th league title. Meanwhile, West Ham have won just 2 of their last 10 matches and sit 38 points behind the league leaders in 16th place. Manchester United make the trip to Newcastle United. The Red Devils are currently languishing in 13th place in the table, while Newcastle are pushing for a coveted Champions League spot. Newcastle comfortably won the reverse fixture at Old Trafford back in December, and United manager Ruben Amorim is well aware of the threat Eddie Howe's side will pose. Amorim is reportedly considering dropping under fire goalkeeper Andre Onana for the match. Onana's mistakes proved costly as United squandered a lead in the first leg of the Europa League quarter-final against Lyon.
we don't have a team that is really big to do that, and then we have some players that I know that cannot make like 90 minutes in this moment. Still, we have to be careful, so we will try to address all these subjects in the game against Newcastle, but we have a great responsibility when we play any game, so I will try to look at that. That is for sure, but we have to face Newcastle with a team that we can be competitive to win the game.
The Hong Kong International Film Festival kicked off with a red carpet event bringing together one of Hong Kong's biggest stars, Louis Koo, and renowned Japanese actor Ando Sakura. Here's more.
I think the most important thing for filmmakers is to be willing to try new things, not just staying in the comfort zone. Then, with the success of AI, filmmakers could make use of it to be creative in the work.
All right, that's a wrap on World DNA. But before we slip into a short break, let's take a quick look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. See you on the other side.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
This week on the West Asia Post, tensions over Iran's nuclear program continue to mount. Can US President reach a nuclear deal with Iran the second time around? While Trump reiterates that Gaza war will end soon.
Well, I'd like to see the war stop, and I think the war will stop at some point.
Netanyahu stays non-committal to a permanent ceasefire. Also on the show, we tell you what preconditions Hezbollah has set for disarmament and opposition's challenge to Turkey's Erdogan. Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION, World is One.
The African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, thrown into disarray following President Trump's tariffs on African countries, including Lesotho. The tariffs could be a death knell for US-Africa trade pact. South Africa, Zimbabwe and the AU react. A wedding becomes emblematic of Eastern Congo's ongoing turmoil as M23 control over the region leaves couples in legal limbo. And teams from all over the world take to the pitch at the annual Granny's World Cup in South Africa's far north, with 30-minute games played at a slow but purposeful pace. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
As Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's legal matter heats up, we tell you about some of the biggest celebrity lawsuits of all time.
यहाँ धर्म और जाति के नाम पर लोगों को लड़ाना बड़ा ही सरल है.
Meet Indian actor Pratik Gandhi as he talks about Phule. And dive into the musical world with Sarod maestro Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times. The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION, World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan John now. Let's start with the headlines.